We are live.
Thanks, Cameron. Good morning, everyone. It's been a while. We
Good
can get
morning.
going.
Good morning.
We've got a good showing already, which is wonderful.
Oh God, I'm in the car.
No problem.
Sorry about that. Can you hear me, right?
We can hear you.
Great.
All right. Do we want to get going?
Sounds good. It's great to see everybody. I know the first item is remarks by the chairs, and Jen, if you don't mind sharing, that's great. But I wanted to just say how great it is to see everyone, and it's been a while, so glad that you're all still engaged. That's terrific.
Um, yes. Happy to chair. I don't have too many remarks. Thanks everyone for being here. It's great to see you as always. Hope everyone's summer is off to a nice start. Um, if we want to just launch into the tools for schools update, I don't know if it makes the most sense to hand it over to Lou to sort of talk through that, or if Senator Kushner, you have any remarks you want to make about tools for schools?
No, I think we can just jump right in.
Thank you. By the way, good morning. Nice to see everybody. And thanks for scheduling this time. I very much appreciate you all making time for this particular conversation. I'm not sure if folks from DAS are planning to give an update on this issue today. I did have one or two things I wanted to talk about specific to tools for schools. I think we are, essentially, I should be straightforward about the fact that we at CEA and the coalition, I think, are going to continue to push for additional state leadership on local implementation in the form of training and enforcement. We're seeing some serious gaps in terms of implementation. And I'll share that with the folks on this group that I'm currently working in two different school districts right now, who are gonna be left unnamed for reasons. But I'm working with two different school districts right now that are at various levels of kind of implementation. One of them where we have complaints coming from members where there is visible mold growth in a number of areas of the building, to the point where it's become an issue where parents are asking questions about it and the educators are very concerned. And the district knows about it and has done things to address the issue, but has not done enough. And we have another district where we have a severe leaky roof situation where every time it rains, you have the district going through and replacing all of the drop ceiling tiles because huge portions of the building have really bad leaky roofs and there's water getting through. And so as you know, as we all know, where there's smoke, there's fire, and where there's traces of water intrusion, you have to be concerned about mold. Especially when you couple that with the fact that this particular building has large parts of the building that are without air conditioning. And the teachers are being told when they raise the issue in this particular place, there's been bond money that has been approved to replace these roofs, and that happened years ago. The roofs haven't been replaced. And when teachers raise the issue, they're being told, well, we're going to replace the building eventually. And so the district doesn't want to invest the money into replacing leaky roofs when their hope is to get the funds to do a whole district um, renovation plan. And so I can also say, you know, when we talk about tools for schools, one of the challenges, I haven't seen the most recent data from DAS, you know, given I'm working off of some data from last year. But one of these two schools actually certified, I noticed when I was going through all the data, that they certified inspections at all of their school buildings on the same day, which immediately brought questions to mind about, are they legitimately doing walkthrough inspections all on the same day? Did these inspections all happen, or did somebody just sit down and check a box for each of these buildings on the same day? So there's some questions regarding the implementation, and so I'm hoping we'll hear from DAS. We are also, you know, again, I just want to stress the urgency of what we're talking about, because I think folks know we are preparing for another heat wave where we're talking about 100-degree plus temperatures in late June and early July. We haven't even gotten to August yet, right? And there were students and faculty in schools just a few weeks ago. And so, you know, it's clear that the problem is not going away. It's, if anything, it's getting worse. And the educators that I work for are frankly somewhat disappointed. They keep hearing us reporting that we've made progress, we have victories, there's inspections, there's money on the table. And frankly, it's not lost on them that they're in a female-dominated profession, and they are very frustrated with the gaslighting and being told by administration that there's no problem. And so, you know, I'll wrap up here, but you know, I think we just want to stress, you know, continue to stress the urgency. You know, we sent a letter to the chairs a few weeks ago, just stating the need for continued action by the working group in particular. We're hopeful that this group will continue to meet during the summer, hopefully on a monthly basis. And we've also recommended, and I'm happy to share that when the time is appropriate with the rest of this group, that we've recommended setting up some subcommittees so that we can begin to tackle some of the remaining items. We did discuss this a little bit on the last call, but we've put forward some concrete recommendations about some of the topics that are left over, including we're supposed to be recommending a complaint procedure so that faculty and staff, part of the problem that I'm having is that in these buildings, teachers are not willing to come forward to share their concerns for fear of retaliation and for fear of upsetting administration. And so there are some things that I think we're required by law to do that we'd like very much to continue working towards. And I think we're also going to ask this group to consider a recommendation. As many of you know, there have been, over the last several weeks, a number of schools have had early dismissal because of high temperatures. And so we think that it makes sense at this time to make a formal recommendation that there be a uniform policy in place, that when temperatures go above 90 degrees in schools, that there would be early dismissal. So I'll pause there and I'll give other folks an opportunity to speak up as well.
Thanks, Lou.
Thank you.
Nerd, I see you have your hand up.
Thank you, Representative Leeper. So, good morning to everyone. I'm glad that we're back at this work again. To address the previous speaker, Lou, I understand his frustrations on behalf of the unions and the teachers. And I'm on this working group as a Board of Ed member that holds a lot of responsibility in what's going on. And when I'm hearing that our staff doesn't have the flexibility to, one, talk to their administrators, I find that very frustrating. I also find it frustrating that as the Board of Ed members across this state, we're not the local taxing authority. And at times we're coming with hat in hand. And we put a lot of these issues forth. And the first thing that typically gets cut is Board of Ed budgets. And I can't speak to everyone's CIP process through town by town. But what I can speak to is that I'm very believing that boards of eds across this state want to do what's best for the teachers in these buildings. We have a lot of age infrastructure. We got a lot of buildings that need to be inspected. And I think the process that we put together for a rolling inspection and stuff like that, I think was very reasonable. I do agree with the previous speaker that inspecting 5 buildings in the same day, the only way I can see that happening if it's 5 separate distinct teams doing those inspections. If it's one inspector doing all 5 buildings, then I would have to agree with Lou on that point. I say that to say this. I don't want to see anything punitive towards districts because we have to work with our local taxing authorities, and there's some buildings that are not owned by the district. They're actually owned by the town. So we serve at the pleasure of the town as we are in these buildings. We have a lot of aged envelopes. What I mean by envelope for the public, that is the walls, the windows, the doors, and the ceiling. So no matter what type of band-aid we put on a system and that we engineer, if there's water intrusion or if the system is poorly designed and is creating condensation and not proper heat transfer, it's going to create internal water condensation and that will create mold as well. What we have to look at is just the aged infrastructure and what can the state responsibly do without it being an unfunded mandate to the local towns. That's the issue right now. The state can take leadership in this, and if they're going to take leadership, this is going to be one of those local school control things that we're going to lose, and we're going to be mandated. And we know schools don't like to be mandated. I'm very empathetic to the staff. We've had these issues in Windsor, and we are aggressively addressing them. But I would really like to caution anything punitive wise in regards to districts that are struggling to get this done. Now, if there's willful neglect, that's a totally different situation. But if there's districts that are struggling to get this work done, I think we need to find a way to responsibly work with everybody and meet them where they are and help them through this process.
Thanks, Leonard. I appreciate that. Senator Kushner?
He's pretty.
Thanks. I think both Len and Lou, you've raised really important points. And unfortunately, we knew going into this meeting that DAS would not be available today. And of course, that always happens over the summer. People often have summer plans. And so, I don't think we won't be hearing from them today, but not for any bad reason. They just aren't available. If I remember correctly, years ago, this Tools for Schools was administered through DPH. And I know the funding was cut for that. And so the position was eliminated, I believe. I forget the guy's name, but he used to come to some of these meetings. Kenny, right? Kenny Fusco?
So just not to interrupt you, but just so you're aware, Kenny Foscue is currently contracting with some districts independently, and he's providing some training services.
Yeah, but
But my
Right.
point is a little different than that. Just maybe
Yep,
let me
yep,
finish
yep.
because
Yep.
the point is really the focus is that we used to have somebody who administered this.
What's up?
Well, it's on the walls in that office.
Ooh,
Ken-
that's
Mine.
I don't know who, great, thank you. We don't have that position funded anymore. And so we don't have the kind of training and the coordination from the state that I think we used to have. That was before my time, but I remember hearing from Kenny on these calls. And so maybe that's one particular thing we could look at is how could we again fund that, whether it's DPH or whether it's DAS. The issue isn't which agency, the issue is making sure that we are on top of this program. And our role as the working group is to make recommendations to the legislature, and maybe that's something we need to look at for our next session, and also next year is a budget year, so it'd be an appropriate time to raise these things. I think, Len, your point about the schools often being owned by the city. I know in my district in Danbury, all the buildings are owned by the district, by the town, I'm sorry, by the city of Danbury. So we don't have the school board folks don't have control over that. And we do have aging infrastructure. We had originally, I think the focus of this working group was on really heavily on temperature and air quality And we had those, the bonding program to increase funding to districts to fix their indoor air quality through HVAC systems. But it's not dealing with the kind of issues that Len laid out, which is the real aging infrastructure. I know that the high school, the original high school in our town, I asked about what would it cost to put in an HVAC system. And the principal looked at me and said, this building, which I believe it was built in the 60s maybe, or the 50s, but quite some time ago, he said the infrastructure underneath the building is so bad that the steam pipes often are not even connected, and you have steam going into the sub-basement where these pipes are located. So, of course, that's going to create the conditions for mold and other problems. And so, I think that it is really important that we address the aging infrastructure of our schools. And I know that's what the Office of School Construction is all about. And we need to have them at the table when we talk about this, but it is a big problem. We know it. And I understand your frustration, Lou, because we take our small victories and we make them into like big victories. Yes, we did this. And then people don't see the change really happening that they feel was so important. So I think we're all sympathetic here, but somehow I think over the next few months, and hopefully we will be able to meet pretty regularly, we can put together a set of recommendations for next year. So I don't know,
Thank you.
Jen.
I appreciate that. And if I could just say one last thing, absolutely agree with much of what Leonard said. We recognize this is complex, and I just want to get across. I know, I put some urgency in my opening statement, but we're not looking necessarily for anything punitive. We're not seeking to place blame on this issue. We want the issue to be addressed and to find solutions together so that we can actually begin to kind of put the pieces of this puzzle together. So I just wanted to thank you both for your comments.
And Lou, I appreciate that, Madam Chair, if I may. I appreciate Lou's comment. But we all know that Board of Education members are always the ones stuck holding the bag in any meeting, during any election. It's not the local taxing authority. It's not the CGA. The local Board of Education members are always the ones that take the brunt of the force. So we're willing to do what we need to do. But I believe this is an issue where we need to get more people to the table. And that's inclusive of CCM, to really, really let them know that they are true partners in this work, because we can put the best systems in these buildings and they're going to last for several years. And then at some point, the envelope is going to give out, or something else is going to give out, and it's going to create something greater than we anticipated. So, Lou, thank you for that perspective.
Matt?
Thank you, and good morning to everybody. Nice to see everyone. I will echo Lou and Leonard, as well as Senator Kushner, in that when it comes to the Tools for Schools implementation, right, we're a year into this process now. And although DAS is not here, I think it would be very helpful if we had some sort of data from them that was updated. What percentage of schools have complied with the 1-year testing requirements statewide? Part of this larger issue is not understanding the scope and scale of the problem. And I think one of the things that I wanted to touch on today is how we have these requirements to do these surveys and this testing, whether it be the 1-year or the 5-year, but all of that data is just kind of in silos. It's housed on individual websites per the statute. It's not submitted to DAS. So we don't have someone to be able to say, hey, here's your report card for Fairfield, or here's your report card for New Haven, or here's your report, right? That's individual report cards on their IAQ. But we don't really have an idea of what the state looks like. So when we're trying to be responsible to say, what is the overall IAQ for the state? What we really need to be able to do is aggregate this data and be able to parse it statewide so that we understand the scope and scale of the problem. If we have a A- statewide, then we don't need to throw a lot of money at it from the state. If we have a D statewide, well, now maybe that's a wake-up call to everybody that we need to do more to improve our grades, right, when it comes to IAQ. And so I think an important part of this is to be able to have some continuous data stream about How many people are performing this work? How is there a way that if a town is impoverished or does not have the money, instead of throwing it onto the Board of Education and say, hey, you have to do this, how can we help them comply? How can we encourage them to comply? What sort of mechanisms can we provide, whether that be the training that Senator Kushner recommended and talked about, right? How do we give them the tools so that they can do the tools for schools, right? They have an empty toolbox a lot of the time. So help from the state in order to say, this is how we can do it. This is how we can help you. Here's who you go to for questions. And I love DAS, but they're not the scientists, right? So I think it does matter what department it is. I think DPH is uniquely suited to be the point person for explanation of things like this. DAS is more about the administration and the paperwork side of things, not necessarily about the data that's in it. And so I would respectfully recommend that DPH shoulder some of the responsibility of training, just like that they used to do. Thanks.
Thanks, Matt. Feeling a little deja vu. I feel like we've had this conversation 3 years ago when we were originally trying to create the recommendations, and pretty much it came out that nobody wanted to own data collection on this issue. And I will just share what Leonard offered, which is what I'm hearing from, and even from my colleagues, is that their districts are all complaining about the cost of doing these checks. And there's not necessarily for everyone, right? Local buy-in. So if you're weighing where to spend money, doing this isn't where districts want to spend money. They want to raise teacher salaries. They want to hire new teachers. You have smaller class sizes. You want more social workers, right? We've had these conversations many times. So there are just so many competing priorities in districts. And for the districts that have done this work, or it aligns nicely because you already have some work in the pipeline. And now what we have done as a state is that this is all reimbursable, where it used to not be reimbursable. So financially, we have stepped up to the plate to say, we care about this. We're going to reimburse for HVAC improvements. And you don't have to have a competitive bid process anymore. It's just a part of school construction now. So that was like a huge shift we did to try to take more ownership of this issue from a state perspective, but that doesn't change that local piece, which is that if you're deciding where to allocate dollars, unfortunately, and it's part of why we've got here, right? More often than not, this priority is lower on the totem pole than a whole bunch of other priorities. And again, having sat at a board table, like Leonard's saying, and also trying to go back out to your constituents if you're a local board member, right? To say what you're delivering for kids in your district. Often people want more teachers, or they want less teacher turnover, or they want more classroom supports. And so that's just like the reality of what this work is up against on the ground level. And without, I know, Lou, you mentioned you didn't want it to be punitive, right? Like this working group can't like police districts. So there's not real, like you have to, I think, at the local level, raise awareness of this issue to get the local level to have more buy-in on why this is so important. And I feel like that piece of implementation also really difficult. Not to, be a wet blanket here. Senator Kushner.
I don't think you're a wet blanket at all. I think you're a realist, and I think that's important. And it is true that all of these things are competing needs in our education system. And, both Jen and I sit on the commission, the Blue Ribbon Commission, so does Len, trying to look at the funding, just the basic funding for our schools. And we're not even taking up school construction, which is a whole nother huge area. But I do think they're very much connected. What seems really unfortunate to me in like so many ways, when COVID hit, we started looking seriously at things like indoor air quality. And it was so fresh in our minds that this was really critical from a health perspective, but we also know from a learning perspective. But now, as we get further and further away from the pandemic, we feel less and less urgent until the next, big thing hits us. And so it's frustrating, and there are many competing needs. And when you look at the whole budget, then you have the competing needs between, healthcare and housing and all of the other things that then are competing with the needs in education. So it's complicated, but I think we can do our best to make the appropriate recommendations and really at least have them, before the legislature to be part of the puzzle that we're trying to figure out.
Senator Kushner, I feel like that is such an important transition into, we did also allocate a substantial amount of bonding to the UConn program that's helping deliver these air filters into classrooms to try to have a bridge for addressing air quality concerns when a school is not ready to do the big lift of the HVAC, but is concerned about the air quality in the classroom. So I don't know if that makes for a timely transition, because I think Marina wasn't able to join us, but maybe Jess, are you able to give us an update on your work?
Sure. Yeah, that is a great
Wonderful.
transition.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Hi, everybody. Honored to be here. It's a privilege. I just want to say and reiterate, it's a privilege to be able to have your support to provide this stop. As we all are aware, this is a stop to the overall bigger infrastructure issue that is indoor air quality in schools. So our update, I think, is great. We have entered our program sort of dissemination stage. So every school superintendent in Connecticut has been invited to participate in the program. They have been made aware through several avenues, and we have gotten pretty good feedback in terms of adoption. We have great data from a pilot school that we participated in, that volunteered to participate with us last year, that basically helped us iron out all these sort of kinks in terms of implementing logistics, lesson plans, indoor air quality monitoring. We just presented their data back to them for the whole year, and they were more than satisfied with the program. So that district built a course box or a DIY air purifier, whatever you want to call it. They built one for every classroom, and it was a sort of a mixed approach. Some classrooms built them with their teachers and students, and for other classrooms, facilities staff built them. And then they also adopted indoor air quality monitoring using our validated monitors and sensors. And they were really intrigued and happy to see their data aggregated over the year. And also they have their data real time in a dashboard. So just so everybody's aware, these sensors monitor temperature, relative humidity, CO2, and particulate matter in real time. The schools have access to those data. They do with it as they please. And then lastly, we had great engagement with the lesson plan part. So I think, and everybody on this call, I think also believes that school infrastructure should not be a part of a teacher or staff sort of thinking. They should basically, indoor air quality, clean indoor air is a right. However, a lot of the teachers, especially the science ones, have adopted and adapted the NGSS aligned STEM lesson plans that our PhD in education and curriculum from UConn helped design and co-design with teachers. To the point where now students in middle school, high school, even elementary school are learning about the basics of air pollution. And they are also learning the basics of engineering because they are building these hands-on air purifiers that connects the lesson plan to actual hands-on. Excitement from superintendents, excitement from STEM coordinators, and also excitement from the other engineering community and education community through presentations and publications. So we've hit the ground running. We have a lot of interest, especially over the summer. Right now, we are engaging with a lot of administrators through several different districts to deliver the materials to the schools, to install the indoor air monitors, and then get them going once the academic year starts.
Jess, I think we got most of that. You were breaking up a tiny bit. So I just want to give you a second. Were you done?
Yeah, sorry. Yes, I'm driving to the office. I apologize. I am done with my spiel, but I'll pause for any questions.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I didn't want to cut you off if you still had more to share. Senator Kushner looks like she might have a question for you.
I just wondered if you could share, I should probably know this, but I don't remember, which school was the pilot school, which district?
Oh, sure. Yeah, that was Coventry Public Schools.
Okay. Thank you. It's a great
Yeah,
report.
Yeah, and actually, if I can share a little bit more about that, because they have been a phenomenal partner. They are actually because of our partnership and because of the data that they collected in real time over the year, and I think they are. I know that they are installing air conditioning units in every single classroom over the summer to start next year. So they are addressing this climate heat related issue head on.
This is really, that's very, very helpful. And it actually makes me think, I wonder if, I know you said you're engaging with every school district, but I wonder, Leonard, if you might benefit if at a CABE meeting, or if CABE could help make boards of education more aware of this program too, and the availability of it, because it's no cost to the district. So I wonder if that would be a good connection just for you guys to make.
Yeah. Oh, we'd love
And
that.
also, and CAPS could be helpful. to
CAPS,
Janet.
we've communicated through CAPS. That was our initial outreach to all superintendents through a newsletter, and we had an interest through that newsletter. Some interest. I wouldn't say 100%, but some.
Senator Kushner, to that point, I would love for that newsletter to go to all the board chairs, so that as we're creating our funding priorities for the next year's budget and stuff, it's no cost to them, but they need to be mindful of it and make sure that it's a priority that they put forth to their citizens, so that we can start controlling the narrative and really putting a positive message out there that we're trying to do the best for our buildings.
Anyone else have any questions or comments for Jess or about the program they're administering?
Yeah, sorry, I didn't raise my hand. Jess, can you comment on how many schools have gotten filtration, the filters and the fans delivered or installed, have taken advantage?
Yeah. So we have at least 10 right now that have in some form implemented the program. And so that means built a DIY air purifier either district-wide or in one school or in a classroom. So we have at least 10, and we have a lot more interested from, again, various districts across the state.
Jess, can you clarify, do you mean 10 schools or 10 school districts?
10 unique school districts.
Districts, thank you.
That's great.
We
Yeah,
also
I-
we have an interesting entree, which has been the school nurses. So recognizing that some school nursing is run by the health district, we have had interest from the school nurses in Waterbury and their Waterbury Health Department from a health perspective. And so it was something on our implementation radar because we know that the purifiers, can capture bioaerosols. But that's another way that we've been able to connect with schools.
A great idea. Local health districts.
Yeah.
I just
Sorry,
want
Lou,
to
I didn't
say,
mean to cut you off. Go
no,
ahead.
no worries. I'm not meaning to interrupt, but I just wanted to say I've been getting some periodic updates on this program through my co-chair, Marina. And needless to say, this project is also not without its challenges. And so Jess, you all have been doing phenomenal work, and appreciate you being here to give folks an update on it, and just please keep up the great work.
My pleasure.
Go ahead.
Good morning. I just wanted to echo the school nurse piece. I think we trend the asthma stuff, and this stuff is very important to us. I know any additional work is always resisted because we're busy, but I think that school nurses are a good asset to tap into.
Absolutely. I'm the daughter of a school nurse. I have all the love for the school nurses. Anyone else have any thoughts on this initiative?
I just have one thought.
Yeah.
I'm very empathetic to the rural districts and the urban districts based on their dynamics with the ability to pay depending on what hits them, whether it's one special ed case in the rural or numerous of them in the urban. And I would like to know for like a Hartford, a Bridgeport, um, how can this program benefit them in an equitable way, like it would benefit a Montville, for example? Like how can we make sure that the impact is felt equally across the board, where everyone has that access, whether they only got 2 buildings or 70 buildings in their district, for example? I think that's the lens that I want to see it from, and how can we spread those resources across the board? Because let's be frank, Hartford, New Britain, larger districts, it's been very public about their struggles with their district and where money goes. And there can be a very spin publicly about, oh, if they got money for this, they should be able to give us money for that. And we want to make sure that we keep each issue in its respective lane and importance so it doesn't get drowned out. So I would love to hear from that perspective.
Great point. Senator Kushner?
Oh, I think, Len, that's really the key. I think piloting this in a small district is great, and it can produce the evidence and it can build it out so that people can see the importance of this program. But I don't know, Jess, if there's been any focus within your group to really try and say, okay, now could we pilot it with one of the large school districts, Bridgeport or Hartford, like Len mentioned? Because even though I said I know I said that there's no cost to it. Of course, there's cost in that the district has to allocate resources of the time of teachers and of administrators to figure out how to engage and implement this program. So of course there's cost to the district in that regard. So how could we have you, or could you, if you haven't already, maybe the next step is to really pick one of those very large districts and figure out how the implementation and engagement and the implementation would take place. Because I think that would be a fabulous next step. If we know how to do it in a small district and we know how to do it in a large district, that sets the program up to be successful statewide.
Sure. I mean, to speak to the point of equity, yes, this program is not. Yes, we piloted it in one school district that was rural, but this program is ready for any and all public school district in Connecticut. So,
Just for
we are telling everybody, whether it's Waterbury, Queen, that we are here. The materials are free and we are accessible, regardless of your. I know. I'm sorry. I'm.
Let me
just. Now?
Yeah, but let me interrupt for a moment because we understand. Jess, we understand that the program is accessible to everybody. But what I was saying, and I think what Len is pointing out, is that the fact that it's accessible doesn't necessarily mean that everyone can make use of it, because school districts like in Hartford and Bridgeport have enormous challenges before them. And so the allocation of the time and resources of the district may not easily, it can't be transferred to this program. So then how then I think it's on us to figure out how do we take something like this and know what will and figure out what will we need to do to make it successful in a large challenged school district. And it's not anything on you and UConn and the program. You guys have a wonderful concept, a wonderful approach to all this. It's really on us to figure out how do we offer that now to a large school district that doesn't have the time to allocate to figure this out.
Right, right. Yeah,
And
we can.
if we figure that out, that'll be a game changer.
And Senator Kushner, to your point, and it could be the opposite side, where it's a rural district where there's limited administrators and teachers, and you got a superintendent that's doing 2 or 3 different jobs outside of being the superintendent, so they may not have the bandwidth to do it as well. So it's equally important in that arena as well.
Matt?
Yeah, I agree, Senator Kushner, trying to figure out the way to make it easier for everybody. And it seems to speak to the challenge we were talking about before with the implementation of the 1-year testing for tools for schools. And it seems as though if the working group is recommending that somebody be the IAQ czar, so to speak, right? That seems like a position that could encompass a lot of these same things, helping with the education for implementation of tools for schools, helping with the implementation of the UConn program, being a funnel for people's questions regarding this, right? Figuring out ways to make it easier for municipalities and districts to take advantage of the things that Representative Leeper talks about how the state stepped up and like we are trying to put all of these tools in place for people. Getting the tools to the people seems to be our challenge from this group, from what I'm hearing overall. And it seems like we have to spend some money or recommend to spend some money in order to do that. And I know it's always not palatable when DAS says, well, we can't support something if it's going to cost anything. And DPH says, we can't support that if it's going to mean I have to hire an FTE. But I think it's the responsibility of the working group in order to recommend that we do spend a little bit of money in order to address these challenges, because that's why you said nobody wants to take ownership, because nobody wants the cost associated with it.
Madam Chairman, John Salomon, I have a kind of a dual responsibility here. I'm a representative of CCM, but I'm also a city manager in a fiscally distressed community. Now, we're kind of an exception to the rules since the voters in Norwich approved almost a $400 million building program to build 4 new elementary schools and 1 new middle school and decommission 5 elementary schools. So within 3 years, we'll be fully compliant, maybe one of the few in the state, ironically, that will be. But I didn't want to brag about that. But I did want to talk about a little bit how we need to have the fiscal side, the Board of Finance or City Council or the Chief Executive Officer, whether it be a mayor or a city manager, involved more in this. That's ultimately how the city, even though we were fiscally challenged, had the citizens approve a massive building program over almost $400 million. And I really haven't seen anybody talking about it. This is all centric, and I understand why, the school districts first. But if you don't have good buy-in from the fiscal authorities, then you're not going to go anywhere. And you said some of that in the beginning of the discussion, but they can't be like a separate entity. They have to be a partner. And even Len kind of views separate in a way, because that's how Board of Eds kind of rally around the situation where they've got to bond together and think of it as us versus them, and it's not. It's obviously a cooperative effort. So whatever CCM can do, but I think we need to expand the focus to fiscal authorities, whatever they may be, and educate them. Because if we can't even educate the Board of Eds, how are the Board of Eds going to educate the fiscal people? So I put that out there as kind of one of the lone representatives of the non-Board of Ed education situation.
I appreciate that, John. Thanks for sharing that perspective. Absolutely. And I think, it's really difficult for the state level folks to capture all the local level folks if you don't have somebody at least who's willing to kind of rally the troops, if you will, at the local level. And so we need folks at those local levels to be the one to help create that information exchange and then hopefully also the buy-in and the urgency around the issue that we all feel. I think we could maybe be a little more strategic in how we engage with CCM, CABE, CAPS as like a reasonable starting point to get better reach into the local level. Anyone else? John, did you have something else you wanted to add? Sorry.
I have to get off mute. Yeah, I think there has to be a point person in the non-Board of Education ledger of the local government. Maybe the finance director, controller. That's how it works with us. Our finance director works directly with the business manager. So they're fully informed of what the potential construction projects would be and future bonding, because many of this, even if it's grant funded, still has to be bonded for upfront funds to accomplish the task. So maybe some good recommendations from us will stimulate that a little bit. I think, I missed the last meeting, and I just want to put in a plug for that approach. So ultimately, if the financial side doesn't buy in, then it's not going to go anywhere.
100%. Anna Kushner?
I think, Jen, maybe what you're suggesting is, I know at the beginning, Lou in his initial remarks talked about subcommittees of the working group. I don't know that we have time today to take that up because we're getting close to the end of this meeting, but I do think maybe what you were saying, Jen, if I understood you, is maybe there should be a sort of subcommittee of the local level of the organizations that are on this working group that represent the local level. And that would probably be CABE and CAPS and CCM. And I think, it would be good to have also the teachers represented on that and also the school nurses, but maybe that's a subcommittee to sort of strategize about how to get buy-in at the local level for these, whatever recommendations we're going to make.
Do we have a representative for local health districts in this group? I don't know if someone from DPH has any insight into like who that group is. There such a group? I'm just assuming there's such a group. And if so, yeah, Miriam.
I think
there's the Association of Local Health Directors, CADH. So I would be happy to connect someone, either you, Rep. Leeper, or you, Senator Kushner, both of you, with their leadership, if that would be helpful. That's generally who we start with, and then, they could help identify folks who may be particularly interested in this initiative.
For a lot of the medium size communities or smaller, it's a regional health district. So it's spread out. Like Norwich and New London are in a health district.
Yeah.
We're
So-
not quite large enough to have our own individual health department, so we rely on the district, and that's good because
Yeah.
it covers then a lot of smaller communities also.
Yeah, and CADH includes districts and departments, so both would be represented by their leadership.
Good. Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
That might be productive. Thank you, Senator Kushner, for the suggestion.
I'll go ahead and do an email introduction with their leadership right now.
Thanks, Miriam. All right. We're getting close to the end of our time. I feel like this was a really productive conversation. And I think we have some clear next steps. Although I do see that on our agenda is the announcement of the time and date of our next meeting, which I don't have. I'm so sorry. So that will be forthcoming. And maybe even the next meeting would make sense to have it be sort of like a smaller subcommittee of these more locally interfacing representatives to see sort of what suggestions they also have for us to help both educate and perhaps motivate. Matt?
As you think about when the next meeting is going to be, if we could make sure to have DAS on the agenda for that, even if they're unable to attend, if they could provide an update of some of the things that we're asking about, namely the percentage of schools that have been compliant with the mandates so far, and any feedback that they have gotten or questions about it that we might be able to help answer, I think would be really helpful so that, we come out with some productive things and a little bit more answers than questions next time.
We'll do our very best. Senator Kushner, do you have any closing remarks?
No, I just thank everybody for their participation. It's always it's a good group. It's a good working group. Very, very functional. Thank you. When we meet, I should say.
All right. Well, with that, thanks everyone. I guess we will adjourn this meeting and circle back hopefully in the next maybe month or so. The summer's always a little tricky to get everybody. But I think probably best to do it before the school year kicks off. So we will aim for that.
Thank you to the chairwomen. Everybody have a nice week. Happy
Thank
holidays.
you.